My husband abandoned me on our honeymoon to be with his mistress. The very next day, my mother-in-law called and told me, "You couldn't satisfy my son. Now you'll just have to deal with it." But her face went pale when she found out what I did to her precious baby boy. Zora Ellington and Langston Vance, a seemingly perfect couple, were enjoying their honeymoon at a luxurious oceanfront resort in South Beach, Miami. The sun blazed over the crystal-clear water and a warm breeze gently brushed their faces as they walked along the shore. Zora, radiating happiness, felt like she was living a dream. Since she was a young girl, she had envisioned this moment, marrying the man she loved and sharing a life full of promise and adventure together. Langston, on the other hand, though smiling and holding her hand with tenderness, held a shadow in his eyes, a restlessness that Zora couldn't quite decipher. His kisses were sweet but fleeting, and his hugs lacked the warmth they used to have. Blinded by love, Zora ignored the warning signs, putting his detachment down to post-wedding nerves. That night, they decided to dine at an exclusive restaurant within the resort. The table was lit by candles, and the soft murmur of the waves accompanied the live jazz band. Zora looked at him with adoration, thinking how lucky she was. But Langston was preoccupied, checking his phone with a frequency Zora had never seen before. Each time the device vibrated, his eyes lit up with an excitement he didn't show for her. "Everything all right, babe?" Zora asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, honey, just work stuff," Langston replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He quickly changed the subject, avoiding any conversation that might delve deeper into his unease. The dinner continued, but the atmosphere had grown strained. Zora tried to shake off the sense of discomfort settling in her heart. She tried to enjoy the food, the romantic setting, but there was something about Langston's attitude that put her on edge. Later that night, upon returning to their suite, Langston received a call. "It's work. I have to take this," he said, rushing out to the balcony and closing the door behind him. Zora stayed in the room, her heart pounding. She crept closer to the door to listen, something she had never done before. Her intuition, the feeling she'd ignored all night, urged her to seek answers. From the balcony, she heard Langston's voice, but couldn't make out the words. His tone, however, was urgent, anxious. The call went on longer than expected, and Zora, feeling a knot in her throat, decided to get dressed and go for a walk, hoping the fresh air would calm her. As she stepped out of the room, she saw Langston enter slightly agitated. "You going out?" he asked, surprised. "Yeah, I just want to walk around a little." "Want to come?" she replied, hoping he would agree. But Langston, checking his phone again, shook his head. "I'll catch up with you later. Just need a minute to finish this up," he responded in a tone meant to sound casual, but which concealed something more. Zora nodded, forcing a smile before heading toward the hotel lobby. As she walked, her mind raced. Why was Langston so distant? Why the need to keep everything secret? Her gut told her something was wrong, but her heart refused to accept what her mind was beginning to suspect. She decided to walk toward the beach, the place that always calmed her. The moon reflected on the ocean, offered a beautiful sight, but Zora couldn't appreciate it. She sat on the sand, letting the night breeze caress her face. She closed her eyes, trying to regain her composure, but a voice in the distance pulled her from her trance. It was Langston's voice calling out to someone. Zora got up slowly, following the sound, her heart racing as she got closer. She hid behind some bushes close enough to hear but out of sight. "I know, Nia, I know. I'm here with you, and I'm not going back to her," Langston said with a tone of desperation. Zora felt the world collapsing beneath her feet. Nia, her best friend, the woman who had been her confidant through thick and thin, the one who had stood beside her through life's toughest moments. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But what are we going to do?" "Zora doesn't deserve this," Nia replied, though her voice showed no trace of regret. "We've talked about this. What matters is how you and I feel. Zora is strong. She'll get over it," Langston responded, his tone now cold, more distant. Tears began to stream down Zora's face, but she forced herself to maintain composure. She refused to be the weak woman who just crumpled in the face of betrayal. She took a step back, silently walking away, leaving Langston and Nia in their world of lies and broken promises. She returned to the resort, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. Everything she had believed, everything she had trusted had vanished in an instant. But she wouldn't allow herself to fall apart. She knew she had to think clearly to plan her next step. When Langston returned to the suite, he found Zora already in bed pretending to be asleep. He approached and with a mechanical gesture kissed her forehead. I love you, Zora, he murmured. But his words now sounded hollow, soulless. The next morning, Zora woke up early before Langston stirred. Her mind had worked throughout the night, and now she had a plan. She quietly packed her belongings, left a note on the bedside table, and walked out of the room without looking back. The note simply said, "I know everything. Don't worry, I won't make a scene. Just don't look for me." The trip back home to Atlanta felt long, but Zora used the time to think. She had decided to confront this situation on her own terms. No tears, no shouting. She wanted to be cold and calculating because she knew it was the only way to win this game she'd been forced to play. When she arrived back at her home in Buckhead, the first message she received was from Amani Vance, her mother-in-law. Zora felt a pang in her chest seeing the name on the screen, but decided to answer. "Zora, I hope you're back home. We need to talk," Amani said with her usual superior tone. "I'm here, Amani. What do you need?" Zora replied, keeping her voice neutral. "I need you to understand something, darling. What happened between Langston and that woman is your fault. You didn't know how to keep my son by your side. You didn't know how to satisfy him," Amani said cruelly, as if enjoying every word. Zora felt rage ignite inside her, but she kept it controlled. "You think so, Amani? Well, you hold on to that thought because your precious son won't be my problem anymore. Now it's your turn to deal with the consequences." Zora's calmness masked her fury. Amani fell silent, perhaps surprised by Zora's response. But before she could say anything else, Zora hung up. She knew Amani wouldn't leave her alone, but she was ready for whatever came next. Later that day, Zora decided she needed someone she could trust, someone who wasn't involved in this chaos. She thought of Idris Hayes, an old friend from Spelman College. Idris had always been a dependable man, a lawyer with an impeccable reputation and a noble heart. She drove to his office knowing he would be her best ally in what was coming. When she arrived, Idris greeted her with a warm smile, but his expression quickly changed when he saw the sadness in Zora's eyes. "Zora, what happened?" he asked, his voice full of concern. Zora sat in front of him, feeling that for the first time in days she could breathe. "Idris, I need your help. But more than anything, I need justice," she said. And for the first time since everything began, she felt like she was regaining control. Idris listened in silence as she recounted everything from Langston's betrayal to Amani's call. When she finished, Idris stood up and walked over to her, taking her hands in his. "Don't worry, Zora. We're going to make them pay, and we'll do it in a way they'll never forget," he promised firmly. Zora looked him in the eyes and nodded. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she wasn't alone anymore. With Idris by her side, she was ready to face Langston, Amani, and anyone else who stood in her way. The game had begun, and this time Zora didn't plan on losing. Zora woke up early, but this time there were no tears or confusion, just a cold, calculated determination. The betrayal she had suffered on her honeymoon hadn't just broken her heart. It had ignited a flame of vengeance she couldn't put out. Idris, her unexpected ally, was with her every step of the way, helping her navigate the dark labyrinth of lies and manipulation surrounding Langston and Amani. Idris had started investigating Nia and Langston's background since Zora told him everything. What he discovered was more disturbing than either of them imagined. Nia hadn't just been Langston's mistress. She was also deeply implicated in a series of financial frauds involving Langston's family's company, a business Amani controlled with an iron fist. The situation was more dangerous than Zora had predicted, and now she knew she couldn't trust anyone except Idris. In his office, Idris laid the documents he had gathered across the table in front of Zora. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a detailed report. "Nia and Langston are involved in a massive embezzlement scheme. They've been siphoning millions of dollars from the company for months. Amani knows, but she's been covering it all up to protect the family's reputation." Zora felt a knot in her stomach. "So all of this was part of a plan to destroy me and take everything?" Idris nodded. "But there's more. Amani doesn't just know. It looks like she orchestrated it from the beginning. She wanted Langston to commit to Nia to ensure she controlled everything, even her own son." The revelation hit Zora like a cold wave. Amani, the woman who had always pretended to be a traditional, caring mother-in-law, was actually a master manipulator who had orchestrated the destruction of her marriage. But Zora wasn't about to let Amani get away with it. "I won't let this continue. We are going to expose the whole truth." While Idris continued to investigate, Zora prepared to confront Nia. The tension grew with every step she took toward the Langston family mansion in the suburbs of Atlanta, where she knew Nia would be. The plan was simple. Confront her with the evidence Idris had gathered and obtain a confession she could use against her and by extension against Amani. Upon arrival, Nia greeted her with a fake laugh, feigning surprise at her visit. Zora, I didn't expect to see you so soon. What brings you here? She asked in a saccharine voice Zora found repulsive. I came to talk to you, Nia. There are things we need to clear up. Zora replied in a tone that allowed no argument. Nia invited her in, but Zora refused to enter the house. She wanted everything to happen in the daylight, with no shadows to hide in. Out here is fine, Zora said. It won't take long. Zora pulled out the documents Idris had prepared and placed them in front of Nia. You know what this is, right? Nia took the papers, trying to keep her expression impassive, but her eyes betrayed her. I don't know what you're talking about, Zora, she lied, though her voice trembled slightly. Of course you do. It's the proof of all the embezzlement you and Langston have been doing, all under Amani's orders. How long did you think you could keep this secret? Zora said, her voice firm and full of authority. Nia took a deep breath, trying to regain control. You don't know what you're talking about, Zora. Amani would never do something like this. Everything you're seeing is a distortion of reality. You're just letting your pain get the best of you. Pain? It's not pain I feel, Nia, it's clarity. It's the realization that I've been surrounded by snakes this whole time. And you know what? I'm not going to sit back while you destroy everything I once loved, Zora replied with a coldness that made Nia take a step back. Nia finally showed her true colors. And what are you going to do, Zora? Publish all of this? If you do, you'll destroy not only Langston but yourself. No one will believe you. Everyone will think it's just the outburst of a scorned wife, she said with a poisonous smile. Zora held her gaze undeterred. That's what you think. But the truth always comes out, Nia. And when it does, there will be no place to hide for you or Amani. The tension between the two women was palpable. A silent battle where each evaluated her next move. Nia, unable to maintain her calm, dropped the mask. You were always the favorite, the good one, the one who had everything. But you know what? Langston never loved you. He was with me long before you two got married. It was always me, Zora, and it always will be. Zora felt a pain in her chest, but she refused to show weakness. And look how that turned out, Nia. You have Langston, but you don't have his respect or his loyalty. You're just another pawn in Amani's game, and when she's done with you, she'll discard you like everyone else. The conversation was abruptly cut short when Langston appeared in the doorway, his face showing confusion at seeing the two women face to face. What is going on here? He asked, looking from Zora to Nia. Your wife came here to accuse me of ridiculous things, Nia said, trying to sound innocent, though her voice had a sharp edge. Zora looked directly at him, her voice firm. I found out everything, Langston. I know what you, Nia, and Amani have been doing. I won't stay silent. Langston tried to approach her, but Zora raised a hand to stop him. Don't come near me. I've endured enough lies. This ends here. Nia, seeing the situation spiraling out of control, turned to Langston. Are you going to let her talk to you like that? Are you going to let her ruin everything we've built? But Langston, for the first time, didn't respond immediately. Something in Zora's gaze, the unwavering truth in her eyes, made him stop. For years, he had been a weak man, easily manipulated by the people who supposedly loved him. But now, confronted with the harsh reality, he couldn't help but feel that everything he had done was wrong. Zora, let me explain. It's not what it looks like, he began to say. But Zora interrupted him. It's not what it looks like? Then tell me, Langston, what is it? What excuse do you have for stealing from your own company, for betraying me with my best friend? What justification can you give me now? Her voice was loaded with controlled pain and fury. Langston fell silent, unable to respond. The truth was there, naked and raw, and no words could redeem him. Zora, seeing there was nothing left to say, turned and began to walk toward her SUV. This isn't over, Langston. Not for you, not for Amani, and not for Nia. Prepare to face the consequences of your actions. That night, as Zora and Idris reviewed the evidence they had collected, a controversial idea began to form in Zora's mind. What if we take it one step further? She suggested with a spark in her eyes. What do you mean? Idris asked, intrigued by Zora's tone. Amani has always been one step ahead, controlling everyone from the shadows. But what if we pull her out of her comfort zone? What if we make what we've discovered public before she can react? Zora proposed, her voice filled with dangerous determination. Idris immediately understood what Zora was referring to. You're talking about taking this war public too. It would be risky, but it might also be the only way to defeat her. Zora nodded. Amani has played with our lives as if we were her pawns. It's time to lay our cards on the table and show her she doesn't have the control she thinks she does. The decision was made. Instead of keeping everything quiet and in the shadows, Zora decided to take the battle to the most dangerous ground of all, public opinion. It was a risky move, but one she believed was necessary to finally destroy the empire of lies that Amani had built. That very night, Zora recorded a video recounting her story, displaying the evidence of Langston and Nia's crimes, and revealing the role Amani had played in it all. She uploaded it to a popular online platform under a pseudonym, ensuring it was widely distributed. The story quickly went viral, generating a controversy that no one could ignore. The impact was immediate. The media pounced on the story, and the public image of the Vance family began to crumble. Amani, furious and desperate, tried to contain the damage, but it was too late. The scandal had erupted, and there was no way to control it anymore. The tension grew with each passing day, and Zora knew she had crossed a point of no return. But instead of feeling fear, she felt a strange calm. She knew the truth was on her side, and she was ready for whatever came. Zora watched the news on TV, seeing her plan unfold. Idris, sitting beside her, asked if she was ready for the final battle. Zora, her gaze fixed on the screen, nodded. I am, Idris. This is just the beginning. The scandal exploded like a bomb, shaking the foundations of the Vance family and destroying the reputation Amani had meticulously built over decades. Zora watched as the world her mother-in-law had controlled with an iron fist began to crumble. News of the embezzlement, the manipulations, and the betrayals dominated the headlines. And each new revelation increased the pressure on Amani, Langston, and Nia. Amani, enraged at having lost control, desperately tried to contain the damage. She called a family meeting at the mansion, a last-ditch effort to rally her allies and concoct a plan to salvage what was left of her empire. When Langston and Nia arrived, they found Amani pacing the main living room, her face contorted with fury. This is all that stupid woman's fault, Amani spat, referring to Zora with venom in her voice. I thought we could manage her, but she's become more dangerous than I imagined. We have to act fast before it's too late. Nia, who had lost all her confidence after the public revelation, remained silent, unable to meet Amani's eyes. Amani, maybe we went too far, she mumbled. People are starting to talk and we won't be able to stop it. Amani turned on her with a rage she rarely showed. Are you suggesting I surrender? Never. Not after everything I've done to keep this family on top. Langston, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. Mother, maybe Nia is right. We've lost. Zora has all the evidence. There's no way to escape this. We should look for a way to minimize the damage, but we can't keep fighting. Amani's gaze hardened at her son's words. I can't believe you're willing to give up, Langston. Everything I've done has been for you. So you could have a brilliant future, and now you want to let a scorned woman destroy it all? Langston lowered his gaze, ashamed. He had lived his entire life in his mother's shadow, and for the first time he realized the weight that shadow had put on him. It's not just Zora, it's everything we've done. We can't keep pretending we're untouchable anymore. In the midst of this family confrontation, Zora and Idris prepared for the final battle. They knew Amani wouldn't give up easily, and they were ready to face anything she tried. In his office, Idris had assembled an elite legal team ready to take the case to court if necessary. Zora, we're ready, Idris said as he reviewed the final documents. Everything is prepared for the preliminary hearing. Amani won't be able to hide anything she's done. Zora, sitting across from him, nodded with determination. I won't stop until Amani pays for everything. Not just for what she did to me, but for all the harm she's caused so many people. This isn't just about personal justice, Idris. It's something bigger. Idris looked at her with admiration. He had watched Zora transform from a woman devastated by betrayal into a relentless warrior. You're right, Zora. This is bigger than us. But I also want you to know that after all this, I want you to have what you deserve. Not justice, but the reward for all the pain you've endured. The days that followed were chaotic. Amani tried everything in her power to discredit Zora and minimize the impact of the scandal, but the truth was already beyond her control. Idris's evidence was irrefutable, and Amani's every attempt to change the narrative failed miserably. The day of the hearing arrived, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Amani, with an arrogant expression, tried to maintain her dignity as Zora's lawyers presented the evidence. But as the case unfolded, it became clear that Amani was cornered. The judge, after hearing the testimonies and reviewing the evidence, ruled that Amani and Langston should be prosecuted for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Nia, who had cooperated with authorities in a desperate attempt to reduce her sentence, was sentenced to time in federal prison. Amani, however, showed no remorse. Her pride and hatred for Zora were evident in every glance she shot her way, but the most controversial part was yet to come. Idris had prepared a surprise no one expected. At the end of the hearing, he presented a document that changed the entire course of the case. It turned out that years ago, Amani had signed a secret prenuptial agreement guaranteeing Zora a significant portion of the family assets in case of divorce, an agreement Amani had never revealed to Langston or even Nia. When the judge ordered the execution of the agreement, Zora became the legal owner of a massive part of the family fortune, a fortune Amani had fought her entire life to protect. Amani's face upon hearing the sentence was a mixture of disbelief and rage. She had lost everything. Zora, on the other hand, maintained her composure. She had won more than she expected, not just materially, but in the fight to reclaim her dignity and her life. Leaving the courthouse, the press swarmed to get statements. But Zora simply said, "This is not just a victory for me. It is a victory for truth and justice and for all the people who have been victims of those who believe they are above the law." In the following days, Zora's life changed dramatically. With the fortune she now possessed, millions of dollars, not just a few thousand, she decided to invest in nonprofit organizations and projects that helped other women who, like her, had been betrayed and oppressed. Idris, always by her side, supported her every step of the way. But the story didn't end there. In a controversial move, Zora decided to make an offer that surprised everyone. She bought the family company that Amani and Langston had tried to destroy and turned it into a financial powerhouse much bigger than it had ever been. Amani from her prison cell watched helplessly as the woman she had despised and underestimated became one of the most powerful black businesswomen in the country. The end came with a final confrontation. Amani, in her last attempt to reclaim some of her old life, requested to see Zora. When Zora walked into the cold prison visiting room, she found an Amani who was defeated but still full of resentment. "Are you just going to stand there and look at me with pity?" Amani said, her voice rough and broken. "You think you won, Zora? That you can replace me in the world I built?" Zora, maintaining the calm she had developed over the past few months, sat across from her. "I'm not here to replace you, Amani. I'm here because I want you to know that despite everything you didn't manage to destroy me. And you didn't manage to destroy what was good in this family. Langston can rebuild his life away from your influence. Nia will have to face her own demons. And me, I have found peace." Amani looked at her with hatred. "Peace after everything you've done." "Yes, Amani, peace, because unlike you, I'm not obsessed with control. I don't need to destroy others to feel whole. I've learned that true strength doesn't come from power, but from forgiveness. And I forgive you, Amani, not because you deserve it, but because I need it." Amani, for the first time, didn't know what to say. Zora stood up, ready to leave, but before walking out, she looked at Amani one last time. "Your time is over, Amani. Mine is just beginning. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.